what do you mean by war for talent? Is there really a war for talent? I'm curious because it seems to me that I look around and there's a lot of people that are looking for jobs, millennials, people over the age of 50, and now you're talking about a war for talent. I'm going, they don't know it. So what do you mean by war?
Well, the war for talent is a phrase that came out of McKinsey years and years ago. It was one of their white papers, and they were describing the changing job market, the demographic shifts, the unemployment statistics, and you put all this together, and what ultimately happens is you have more jobs than you have people, at least the caliber of people that we're looking for. With all due respect, in a world with increasing customer demands, increasing complexity, we need a fully engaged workforce. And the demand for those people continues to increase, thus creating the metaphorical war for talent.
So in some extent, what you're saying is there's kind of a shift on the part of at least some companies where they're not just looking for warm bodies. They're looking for people that are actually going to add value to the company and be fully engaged with it. And
yes, our customers expect more and more. It's not just our customers. We think customers in the world, I'm more demanding as a customer. And I bet you're more demanding than we were a decade ago, because the bar continues to be raised for service and hospitality and convenience. And it's just more difficult to deliver that than the days when people just wanted a chicken sandwich and some fries. Mm-hmm. So right. Talent is a key part of that solution.
Right, and talent meaning people that are using their minds and not just showing up. So you talk about top talent and then you talk about typical talent in your book, and I'm just wondering, what's the difference? I mean, you're starting to talk about that right now, and I just want to dig into it a little bit more.
Well, we've asked people to imagine their very best team member, not a leader, not a shift supervisor, not one of your executives, but your best entry-level person. Who is that person? What would it take to attract more of that person? And so we know it varies from industry to industry. It varies from job to job, from role to role. But if we can get people to imagine the very best, those are the folks we want to attract. Now, to your specific question, what's the difference in top talent and typical talent? That was an artifact of the research. When we said we wanted to go and study what is it that top talent really wants, we said, well, let's compare and contrast that with men and women who are competent and capable, but they're in that next tier. They're not top talent. In some organizations, you might think of the difference between an A player and a B player. We really weren't interested in learning the difference between your top people and the bottom people, because we could all imagine those differences. But if we really wanted to build an organization that would attract the brightest and best, we said we need to figure out what are the differentiators, what sets them apart.
So Mark, you mentioned research. Tell me a little bit. You conducted research. Tell me, why did you do it, and what exactly did your research look like?
Well, we were forced into it, honestly. It was a crazy scenario, at least from my perspective, because when we decided we wanted to figure out what attracts top talent, I naively thought that I would go out and buy some research, and I'd bring it into the organization and position it appropriately and share it with our folks, and we would just keep moving. And so my first call was with Gallup, and Gallup said, fascinating question. No one's ever researched what attracts top talent. And I said, you got to be kidding me. They said, no, it's never been done. I said, why not? They said, it's really expensive, real time consuming, and really hard to do. Well, I wouldn't take no for an answer, so I called Aon, and then I called Marcus Buckingham, and then I started calling academics, and then I called all these people going, somebody's got to have done research regarding what attracts top people to organizations. And we found that there wasn't any, not that we could find. And so we said, we'll have to do it ourselves.
So I have a question. Why are you asking this question?
Well, if we're going to invest time, energy, and effort to recruit people, it seems to us that it would make sense to put a message out there that will attract the type of people you actually want. I think about my dad, and we used to go fishing, and he always caught more fish than I did. Well, I had a particular lure that I like to use, but he would use whatever the fish were biting. And he even used different types of worms. And I'm going, they're different types of worms. And he said, yeah, these fish and those fish. So if we want to catch more top talent, why don't we figure out what it is that they want? It's a real paradigm shift. I'll add this quickly. I had a chief people officer of a big, multi-billion-dollar company. After he read the book, he said, this changes everything. I said, well, I don't know if it changes everything. I mean, it's, just some research on what top talent's looking for. He said, no. He said, we have never considered what top talent wants. We have always considered what is it we have to offer. Well, they were like me, fishing with that lure that I liked that the fish didn't care for, but I kept fishing with it because it was my preferred bait of choice.
So yeah.
Research to know what is it they want.
Right. So you were looking at this in your role at Chick-fil-A, not just theoretically.
Well, not only in my role in Chick-fil-A, because we felt for this to really serve the world, it didn't need to be about quick service restaurant employees. And so the research we did, it included some Chick-fil-A people, but it also included a national online survey. We had over 7,000 folks in the initial database, all 50 states, age 14 to 65, all socioeconomic demographic groups. We also got into the performance management system of some organizations, some professional firms where they let us have access. We created 2 groups. We looked at their top talent, men and women who had had the highest rating for 3 consecutive years at a minimum, compared to those that had scored just below them for that same period. We asked them a battery of questions so that we could quantify the differences. We did in-restaurant ethnography to, again, bring some of our Chick-fil-A perspective to it. We did over 400 face-to-face interviews. I did over 200 of them myself. And so we did a lot of things. We didn't want this just to be true for folks that sell chicken. We wanted to know, what is it that top talent, regardless of demographics, regardless of socio-economic status, we wanted to know, are there any universal traits and characteristics that top talent looks for in a job?
Okay.
And they are.
Excellent. So, all right, and the drum roll. What did you learn?
Well, we learned 3 things. First, top talent wants a better boss. Now, that may sound weird because I've gotten this feedback, like, well, doesn't everybody want a better boss? Well, sure, everybody would like a better boss, but it's a condition of employment for top talent. They really care who they work for. And we think that's good news for us because we've worked really hard to select men and women to operate the restaurants that can provide that leadership. But one of the things we discovered, it's not just the top leader. We're talking about everyone who leads. And for frontline people, they're talking about their immediate supervisor.
Right.
So real mandate for us to be sure, and I think for organizations that want to become a talent magnet, they've got to be sure that their leaders are doing what leaders need to do.
Yeah.
So that was the first finding.
That just makes so much sense, because just even looking around, I find that the top people leave before the company even notices them that they've lost top talent if they've got a lousy boss and their boss. They're just out of there.
Yeah. And so one quick thing I will tell you about that, we didn't want to stop with that. So we asked a lot of follow-up questions. And I think you'll appreciate this. The number one thing that top talent said they wanted from a better boss is someone who would demonstrate care.
And what does that mean?
Well, it means somebody that wants them to win as well as the organization. It's somebody that knows their name. It's somebody that cares about them as a human being, not just a cog in the machine. I mean, they expect them to look after the interest of the organization. They understand the role, but they don't want it to be a win-lose. They want it to be a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was an interesting and encouraging finding.
Yeah, and it sounds like human connection.
Absolutely.
And then, so that's one finding, was a better boss.
The second is that top talent wants a brighter future. Now, again, you may think, well, that doesn't everybody want a brighter future? Well, interestingly enough, typical talent doesn't think as much about the future as top talent. What we learned is that top talent has much more of a future orientation. And because they have a future orientation, they've come to grips with the reality that they're probably not going to stay in one job or one role for their entire career. That's an artifact of my generation, right? Where a lot of people did that. But they know they're going to probably move within the organization and potentially and probably outside the organization. So they're looking to see, how will this opportunity prepare me for the future? They're asking a different set of questions when they come into the interview. They're asking things such as, how will I grow? How will I be challenged? How will I be stretched? How will you and the organization help me prepare for a brighter future?
Yeah.
And organizations that can answer those questions have a much better shot at attracting top talent.
Right. And so that just makes so much sense. So you're not just looking at getting people in for a job for life, but while they're there, you want them to give 100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And sometimes they leave and come back too. Isn't that interesting?
They will.
And they come back smarter because they've learned a little bit more in the other organization that they went to. It's like, it's almost like the contract has changed. Like in exchange for loyalty, I'll give you a job for life. Now it's going to be in exchange for your full engagement, I'm going to help you grow and develop.
That's the new world we live in.
Yeah, good. So that's two, and you said there's a third.
Third, top talent wants a bigger vision. And we really, we combine two things here. One is they care much more as a group about the mission and the vision and the values of the organization. So they want an organization that is pursuing a bigger vision, but they also want to make a difference in the world, and they want to be part of an organization that has a broader worldview. Now, it doesn't have to be global necessarily. It may be helping kids down the block stay in school, or an after hours mentoring program. But there's this real sense that there needs to be more than the actual work. And even if there is an organizational focus on the work, it needs to be contributing to a bigger story. And we found that to be true, much more true with top talent than typical talent. And I think it's linked to their future orientation. They're thinking longer term. They're thinking bigger picture. And they really want to be part of something that they can be excited about.
So, I'm curious if you have any advice for people that are thinking about this. You said it's not just about HR.
Yeah, I think it's about leaders. I mean, leaders have to be engaged, or you'll never create the culture that we just described, right? So the leader, they're obviously involved if they're going to be becoming a better boss. But if they're going to help people achieve and pursue and live into a brighter future, they've got to be involved. And if leaders want to help people realize and connect to a bigger vision, they've got to be sure, A, that there is a vision, B, that there is alignment to it, that they're celebrating impact along the way. I mean, there are many, many things that leaders have to do to create the culture that we're describing here.
So, which actually kind of leads me kind of to your book, which, you've gone into this in much more detail than we've just kind of skimmed the surface. And I just want to come back to that again and encourage people to get it, because Mark, you go into it in much more detail. What I really appreciate about it in this research is that, first of all, you take something that's very complex and make it easy to read and understand, for regular people. And you're really helping bosses become better bosses by helping them understand that they need to create a brighter future, show a broader purpose. And so it's not just for senior leaders. This book is something that's really helpful for leaders at all levels in the organization. And I also appreciate your emphasis on the supervisory role and treating them with the same level of respect as you treat the senior level leaders, in terms of saying, you got to be as good a boss as the senior leaders are.
Without their daily involvement, the frontline leaders, you'll never really create what we call a talent magnet. If you want a place so compelling that people will stand in line to work for you, it will not happen without the daily engagement of the frontline leaders.
And that's a great note to end on. Mark, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's just always a pleasure to talk with you.
Great to see you.